Hello, recruit, and welcome to Astroneer Academy 202, Scrap. As you roam the planet, you encounter a huge amount of wreckage, and as you make progress as an astroneer, you may find that you have items that you no longer have use for. So what do you do with all this stuff? Well, I guess you could just dig a hole, shove it all in, and then bury it and let it be forgotten. Or you could do something much better. You could turn it into scrap. Scrap is a resource in Astroneer that is obtained through different methods than those used to gather other resources. You may sometimes find scrap stacks on wreckage throughout all of the planets, but you can also create scrap. Scrap is created from one of the 3 shredders, which we'll discuss in just a few moments. Each scrap stack consists of 50 individual little cones. Much like your terrain tool will store partial nuggets of a resource until it has extracted enough to create a full stack, shredders will store partial nuggets of scrap until one full stack is complete. When it is complete, it'll automatically move to available attached storage. If there's no storage available, the scrap will just simply fall to the ground. So let's take a look into each of the shredders to discover how to properly power them and what they can and cannot scrap. The medium shredder is a tier 2 object that requires 1,250 bytes to unlock in the research catalog and is printed on the small printer from 2 iron. It'll consume power at a rate of 1.5 units per second. The medium shredder may also be thought of as the least capable shredder of the 3 available because it can only shred tier 1 objects and scrap bundles. But that does not necessarily mean you should overlook it. In a moment, we'll discuss the economics of trading scrap and how the medium shredder is all you need to obtain resources in an efficient manner. The large shredder is a tier 3 item that requires 2,500 bytes to unlock in the research catalog and is printed on the medium printer from 1 tungsten carbide and 2 iron. The large shredder can shred all tier 1 and tier 2 items, with the exception of tier 2 land vehicles. Actually, no shredder can currently shred land vehicles or even shuttles, though we will discuss a way that you can turn them into scrap in just a few minutes. The large shredder consumes power at a rate of 3 units per second. Since it can handle tier 2 items, that also means that you can shred 2 tier 1 items simultaneously. The third shredder is the extra large shredder, often affectionately referred to as Big Chungus, and it's a tier 4 item that requires 5,000 bytes to unlock in the research catalog and is printed on the large printer from 2 steel and 2 tungsten carbide. The extra large shredder can shred nearly everything tier 3 and below, which means it can shred 1 single tier 3 item at a time, or 2 tier 2 items, or up to 4 tier 1 items all at the same time. And the extra large shredder also consumes power at a rate of 3 units per second. Aside from their inability to shred land vehicles and shuttles, all of the shredders have a few characteristics in common. They will all operate at a reduced speed if you do not supply enough power to them. And you want to keep dynamite away from all 3, as it will instantly detonate if it's placed into a shredder. The resulting explosion can destroy not only your shredder, but possibly the platform it was attached to, along with possibly destroying nearby items. So now that you know how to create shredders, it's important to understand that not every item that you shred will produce the same amount of scrap. While it is just not possible to cover every single item that can be shredded for scrap, you can engage in some extracurricular reading at the Astroneer wiki link in the description down below. The linked article will provide you with the full details of every single item that can be shredded, both wreckage and those that you have crafted. It'll also tell you how much scrap each item produces and which shredder is required to turn that item into scrap. It is definitely worth checking out. One of the more recent additions from Exodynamics has made scrap collecting even easier. Tier 1 size debris objects can be gathered up into your backpack where they will form debris bundles. Each debris bundle can hold up to 5 tier 1 debris objects, and those debris bundles can then be scrapped in any shredder. Previously, tier 1 debris objects had to all be scrapped individually, and they couldn't be stored on your backpack or on any other storage item. The addition of debris bundles has simplified and sped up the scrapping of tier 1 objects immensely. On top of that, the recent salvage initiative from Exodynamics has finally given astroneers the opportunity to turn disused items and very large wreckage into scrap through a 2-part process that requires a little bit of dynamite. First, attach the dynamite to the object or large wreckage that you wish to scrap, initiate the detonation, and then run away to safety. Once the explosion is over, the item you attach the dynamite to should now be broken down into smaller pieces. So for the second step, you can simply place these smaller pieces into a shredder and turn them into scrap. Many astroneers prefer attaching a shredder to a rover and going out to collect their scrap as they encounter it. This can save a lot of time by turning wreckage into scrap as you encounter it instead of needing to haul each item back to a shredder at your base. But if you don't have enough space on your rover, or enough power attached to the rover to keep the shredder and the rover running as well, you can also pack wreckage using a packager. As we mentioned earlier, Tier 1 items will automatically scrap together into bundles on your backpack. Tier 2 wreckage can be packaged into smaller Tier 1 packages, and Tier 3 wreckage and debris can be packed down into smaller Tier 2 packages. This allows you to attach these scrap packages to storage and bring them back to your base to shred later. Astroneers across the universe have differing opinions on which approach is better, but we'll have a quick discussion about opinions in just a minute. Now that you know how to create scrap and how much scrap you can get from each item, what do you do with all this scrap? Well, the answer's easy. You open your research catalog, head over to the tab for the medium printer, and spend 2,500 bytes to unlock the trade platform. Then you walk over to that medium printer, and with 1 iron, 1 tungsten, and 1 compound, you craft that trade platform. Unpackage it and start attaching scrap, because you're about to turn scrap into raw resources. When you open the control panel on the trade platform, you'll notice that you can select between 14 different resources. The first several, including compound, resin, organic, clay, quartz, graphite, and sphalerite, will all provide 2 full stacks of raw resources for every single scrap stack attached to the trade platform. Since the trade platform only contains 8 Tier 1 slots, you can only attach 4 scrap to it when trading for those resources. The next class of resources, which includes ammonium, laterite, and malachite, are exchanged at a ratio of 1:1. Obviously, that means for every 1 scrap you attach to the trade platform, it will return with 1 stack of the resource you selected. So you can get up to 8 of these per launch. The third class of resources includes wolframite and hematite, which will return 2 resource stacks for every 3 scrap that you attach to the trade platform. This means that you can only attach a maximum of 6 scrap to the trade platform when trading for these 2 resources. Titanite is the 4th resource class, and it requires 2 scrap in exchange for a single stack of titanite. That means you can put 8 scrap on the trade platform, and you'll get back 4 titanite in return. And finally, lithium is the most expensive resource class, requiring 4 scrap for each single lithium stack. So if you pack the trade platform full of 8 scrap, you're only going to get 2 lithium back when the trade platform returns. Once you have selected the resource you wish to trade for, and you've attached the scrap to the trade platform, simply press the big green button to initiate the trade. The small rocket will launch into space and return a minute later with the resource that you requested. The trade platform does not require any power or fuel to launch, so you don't need to worry about your scrap trade interfering with all the other power consumers that you have. And here's a bit of a pro tip for the scrap trade. While crafting the trade platform and even the medium shredder does require that you visit a couple of different planets to collect the resources necessary to craft them, these items can save you repeat trips back to those in other planets if you're low on resources required for space travel. By using scrap, you can send the trade platform off into space to, well, I don't think anybody really knows exactly where it goes, but you can send it off into space to retrieve resources for you instead of launching yourself into space to gather those same resources. This also allows you to delay spending bytes to research larger shuttles and better thrusters until after you've unlocked some other items that you would rather have. And of course, trading resources may just buy you enough time to regather all the resources that you need for space travel. And that brings us to the economy of scrap. As we discussed earlier, not all objects yield the same amount of scrap, but there are some objects that can actually be rather beneficial to create simply for the sake of scrapping. Once again, I turn your attention to the Astroneer wiki link in the description below for discussion. One of the tips offered there is to obtain enough soil to create 6 clay in the soil centrifuge, then smelting that clay into ceramic. With that ceramic, you can craft 6 of the drill mod 1. Now, shred all 6 of those drills, and you wind up with 3 scrap that you obtained through just 2 canisters of soil. If you want an even greater return, be sure to visit the link in the Astroneer Wiki scrap page for yet another tip that consumes more time and more power, but yields even more scrap per canister of soil. It can be helpful to understand this scrap economy because it can be quite useful, especially early on when you may be struggling with resources required for space travel. Instead, just stay put where you are, gather a bit of soil, and indirectly turn that soil into scrap. If you look around the internet, taking in all that the Astroneer community has to offer, you will find varying opinions on the most efficient methods for gathering resources. And amongst all those people, you will find a group that insists that trading scrap for resources via the trade platform is the best way to obtain resources in a short amount of time. They will argue their opinion with all sorts of numbers and citations of time invested for each. And it's not that I disagree with them in principle, but in practice, I simply do not enjoy standing at the trade platform for long periods of time, loading scrap, and unloading resources. In fact, I don't really enjoy being in one place for too long at all. I like to get out and explore and see things and have things try to kill me while I get lost on planets and invariably get a rover stuck somewhere. Instead, I prefer just to keep some scrap on hand for those moments when I'm crafting items and find myself short on a particular resource. Because of that, when I head out to collect research, I'll often bring along an extra large shredder in my rover train. This allows me to get out and explore while not only collecting research items for the research chamber, but also stopping to scrap wreckage. This gives me a solid scrap collection to tap into when I run into those moments where I find myself short on resources. And all of this brings me to a very important aspect of being an Astroneer, even though it's not directly tied to the topic of scrap itself. This video marks the end of the introductory material for the Astroneer Academy. If you have not yet watched the first 7 courses, hit up the playlist at the end of this video and check them out. And while you're watching, remember that there is no single or best way to be an Astroneer. Systemera, the developers of Astroneer, have done an outstanding job of creating a game that almost never interferes with how you prefer to play. If you do not want to ever craft a single item, you don't have to. If you never wish to pursue the storylines in Astroneer, you don't have to. If all you want to do is find new ways to kill an Astroneer, that's fine, though maybe a little dark and you kind of scare us. If you want to blow up an entire mountain, or even build an entire mountain out of compound stacks, go right ahead. Every one of you Astroneers will find methods, best practices, and play styles that suit you and bring about the most enjoyment for you. And do not ever let anyone tell you that your way of playing is wrong, because it isn't. If you're having fun, then you're doing it the right way. If only there were a way that we could take those opinions away from people who insist that their way is the right way or the only way, and shove those opinions into a shredder. Yeah, but then again, such opinions probably wouldn't really yield much scrap. And that concludes our introduction to scrap and Astroneer. It also concludes all of the introductory courses in Astroneer Academy. Starting in Astroneer Academy 203, my first base, we will begin to take all of the knowledge that you have gained so far in Astroneer Academy and apply it to base building, and eventually even to exploring the solar system and unlocking its many mysteries. But until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to stay vainglorious.